Yo, welcome to the Pacific Bitcoin Last Call Special with the one, the only, the legendary Greg Foss, one of the macro heavyweights on Twitter. Guys, this is your last chance to buy your tickets, get a huge discount to the Pacific Bitcoin Conference. You could use the promo code all caps last call to get your tickets. Now, what's going to make the Pacific Bitcoin Conference different is that it's not too big where everyone gets lost in the sauce, but it's not too small. So you have a chance to run into some of your favorite Bitcoiners, Greg being one of them. So I want to welcome onto the stage. How you doing, Greg? Happy to have you on the show, my friend.
It's awesome to be here. There's a slight delay with my feed. I hope that we're able to pair this up afterwards, but I've always had trouble with the real stream or restream. So, hey, I'm happy to be here, brother. Let's do this. Really looking forward to Pacific Bitcoin.
Absolutely. So, guys, I want to make this a little bit more interactive, like Pacific Bitcoin. So, please put your questions in the live chat, and I'll make sure to ask them to Greg. But one of the things that was really popular, specifically during the Pacific Bitcoin Marathon, was when I got a lot of people to talk to some of the legacy financial heavyweights. So, I'm going to make Greg do that today. And I'm going to get one of his favorite people on the show. I invited him. Ben Bernanke made it today. And I'm going to give Greg 60 seconds to say whatever his heart desires to Ben. Let's do this.
Well, Ben, your legacy certainly does not deserve the Nobel Prize, my friend. You were single-handedly responsible for the melt up in the fiat Ponzi. Helicopter Ben is not a moniker I'd be proud of. In fact, I'd be ashamed so much that I would, out of good faith, return the Nobel Prize because you've cost a generation of children their future with your selfish actions to protect fat, white, fiat fools like myself, okay? We didn't need your help. The markets would have worked themselves out properly in a free market way, but you had to try and protect everybody. Helicopter Ben is a failure. You should be actually ashamed of your legacy. At your funeral, people will not be singing your praises, I'm afraid. Thank you.
We're out of time, and Ben told me that he could only make it 60 seconds today. So I want to appreciate. Thank you, Ben Bernanke, for coming on the show and not having the ability to respond to Greg. But going back to something, you said something really interesting, which was, why the hell did they give this guy a Nobel Prize in economics? That's insanity to me. What do you think about that, Greg?
Yeah, no, I can't argue with that. It's almost like they're trying to laugh at us. I guess what I would say is this: tomfoolery begets tomfoolery, and at the end of the day, it was just why not stick your thumb in the eye of people who are rational thinkers? I can't possibly imagine what's going through his head. If he has the moral code to accept that award, then he truly is conflicted. My thoughts would be that he's somewhat ashamed of the award. Certainly, I know I would be, as well as many other people that work in the legacy traditional finance markets.
Yeah, no, it's disgusting. It's almost as if it was a power play. It was the elites saying, hey, if you continue this racket, we will reward you. I think the fiat value, they gave him a cash prize as well. I think it was it was around $400,000 to $500,000.
Wow.
Do you think that's what it was about, Greg? It was like, look, we know you fucked up. You're stealing from people, but here's a reward. And that gives a signal to all the other central bankers.
Yeah, I'm not going to go that far. I will tell you that this is something I learned. Did you know that the Nobel Prize money from the family of I think it's Joseph Nobel? Forgive me if I'm butchering the first name, but the family, the Nobel Prize that funds the award, I believe they made their fortune on gunpowder, which I find pretty interesting because Ben Bernanke basically blew up the world. So maybe there is a gunpowder link to the award, but I don't think it's a monetary award. I certainly know Ben Bernanke doesn't need the money. He milked the fiat system like a champ and doesn't need the money.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Anybody who's joining the stream, you're listening to the Pacific Last Call special. You can take advantage of the promo code, all caps, last call, to get a big discount on the Pacific Bitcoin Conference. Also, to make this a little bit more interactive, to represent what Pacific Bitcoin is going to be, make sure to drop your questions in the live chat for the opportunity to ask this man any question your heart desires. Anyways, we have our first question from Redbeard Sport Fishing. He says, Greg, he or she, I don't know. Greg, you can touch on how the derivatives can suppress the price of Bitcoin. I think he meant to say, can you touch on how derivatives can suppress the price of Bitcoin?
Yes. So great question. Let's make sure we understand that the current contract is a cash settled futures contract. So that means that you don't have to deliver physical Bitcoin when the contract expires. You just have to, it's a difference between the price of Bitcoin and the price of the contract that you either bought or sold. That's how the contract is settled. So it's cash settled. In that way, there is a false level of supply and demand in the market. I'm not overly concerned at the moment with the potential manipulation of the price, because while open interest on the contracts is historically high, it's not high enough to indicate, to me anyway, that there's some state malpractice taking place. I would just say that it would be better if it was a physical settled futures contract rather than a cash settled. But my opinion is that a cash settled contract is better than no. Some of the storms, including the Luna meltdown. So we have an issue with Luna that otherwise, if there wasn't short interest in the markets, might have really caused the price of Bitcoin to fall pretty precipitously. I think that they made it through the Luna debacle in flying colors. You also have to add on to that the Celsius, Elon Musk selling, and then general risk assets that were selling off as well. So Bitcoin did fall from the 30,000 level to under 20,000, but that buying was, or the bids in the market were short covering bids. I spent my career in the hedge fund business. Shorts are a very necessary component of any market. Why? Well, because sometimes those are the only buyers, right? The only bid that remains is people who are trying to cover their short sale. So I've shorted things in my life. You know, you can make money being long, you can make money being short. It's part of an efficient market process.
Amen to that. Guys, you're listening to the Pacific Bitcoin Last Call special with the one, the only, the legendary Greg Foss. You can take advantage of the promo code, all caps, last call, to get a major discount on your ticket. In honor of Pacific Bitcoin coming up, we're making this show interactive, so drop your questions in the live chat for a chance to ask Greg your questions. We got the next one by Mr. Mikkel. He says, what will happen to European energy prices and how will that affect the housing market? I think it's a great question.
If I had all those answers, I would just tell you that I wouldn't be, and by the way, I don't really work anymore, so I'm not trying to pretend I work hard, but I still would, I'd have so many answers that I'd be able to be the world's biggest philanthropist. I'd give away all the money that I could make by knowing for certain which way the markets are going to go in anything. So that's an area that I don't have any expertise in. I could probably speculate, but it's going to be worth nothing more than flipping a silver dollar. What I do know is this, though. The housing market globally is in trouble. Very simply, I'll look at my own home country of Canada. Housing prices are far in excess of what a normal working family can afford, even when interest rates were far lower than they are now. So the average mortgage in Canada is going to roll over. 60% of mortgages are going to roll over within 2.5 years. We don't have in Canada a 30-year mortgage fixed rate. We have a 30-year amortization period, but the rate is only fixed for about 10 years, of which a lot of people went to variable rates. So there's a lot of pain in the housing markets. You can see that by a year ago, there used to be price wars where house prices would trade over the offering price. Now people are taking 80% of the offer. Trades are happening there, and the liquidity is evaporating, which means there's not multiple buyers, and people are sitting on their hands. If you take that and transpose it across the world, in Europe, where they do have this energy incremental expenses that are killing businesses, killing jobs, it has to be worse. So be careful. I particularly like Bitcoin as a hard asset over real estate right now. One of the reasons I like it so much is because of, firstly, the energy component of Bitcoin, but secondly, and most importantly, the transferability and portability of Bitcoin versus a hard asset like real estate.
Absolutely. Guys, you're listening to the Pacific Bitcoin Last Call Special with the one, the only, the legendary Greg Foss. Take advantage of the promo code, all caps, last call, to get a big discount on your Pacific Bitcoin ticket. This is an interactive live stream, so drop your questions in the live chat that you want to ask Greg. But before we get to that, I want to go over some of the Pacific Bitcoin schedule. Let's check it out. So, Greg, you are on day 2 at the hard money stage. You are on the Bitcoin Time Machine 2002 with the moderator Tomer Stromlight, Ben DeWall, and Isaiah Jackson.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped for that. I can't wait to meet him.
And you're also on the Bitcoin and debt markets. I feel like that's something right up your alley with Adam Reeds, Greg Foss, Jesse Mayer, and Sam Callahan.
BTC Croatius, and so I'll get to meet him. He sort of doxed himself recently, right? And then Adam Reeds is CEO of Ledin. They've just made an interesting acquisition up here in Canada. We can talk more about that on stage, but anyway, all good. Looking forward to both of those talks. And then I think I'm having a talk with Brady, and who's going to be there? It's going to be Brady, James Lavish, Larry Lepard, and Dr. Jeff on the first day, the morning of the 10th, of Thursday, because we have this regular macro thing that we're going to be doing live at Swan Bitcoin, I think, right? So it's going to be the Swan or the Cafe Bitcoin. So looking really forward to all of that. You know what I really like, Nico, is learning stuff from my fellow panelists. I don't have all the answers. Anyone who thinks they have all the answers should not be managing risk, because nobody has all the answers, and it's all about learning some of the things you might have missed, some of the thesis or your thesis, how it might have holes in it. So always looking to improve my knowledge base.
Absolutely. And that's what these conferences are all about. You could also, guys, if you're looking to get a job in the industry, if you're looking to get to know people, you have to go to these conferences. And Pacific Bitcoin is just the right size, where it's not too big, but it's also not too small. Also, we have another question, because this is an interactive show. After all nighter Hyder says, trolling kind of question. What's the longest term U.S. sovereign debt bond you'd consider buying? Do they sell 1 hour bonds?
Yeah, it's a funny question. He also says, I was fortunate enough to have met Greg at Market Disruptors last year. So it was great to meet you too. Thanks for the question. Yeah, you can actually buy a bond that does mature in less than an hour. Those would be short-term treasury bills that are rolling off off the balance sheet or off your blotter at the end of the day. So it would be a 1-day T-bill that you buy with, less than T+1 settlement. But what it comes down to is this. There's a price for everything, and global sovereign debt amongst the various countries will trade for a price that reflects the risk in the market. That includes three basic risks. Okay, so this is any sovereign. This does not just apply to the US Treasury. The first would be inflationary expectations. That's the big one. And if you take the US 10-year and it's got a 4 and change yield right now, let's just use 4% to keep the math easy. Most of that 4% yield is to protect people over a 10-year period for inflation, because inflation right now is running at 8% annualized, and inflation compounds. So if you go from 8 to 6 to 4 to 2 to 0, you still haven't made your money back on a 4% investment over those 4 years. You have to make your money back on the tail end of the ownership period, where inflation is running lower than, let's say, 0, or right at 0 for the tail end on a time value basis to make your money on a risk adjusted. So you have inflationary expectations. You have a liquidity component, which means imagine if the bid offer spreads widen, you have to be compensated for that liquidity. In that if you had to sell and the bid was way below your 4% yield, let's say you bought the bonds at 4% yield and the next bid's now at 5% because the markets have become so illiquid that the bid is 5% and the offer is 4%. Bonds trade for a price, and the yields get flipped, inverted. So your bid side is actually a lower yield. The bid side is a higher yield or lower price than the offered side, because that's how bonds trade. So when I quote a yield 5% bid, 4% offer, it really would correspond on a 10-year bond to something like 92 bid, par offered. Well, imagine if that's an 8-point bid offer spread for US Treasury bonds. It's not going to happen, but it could happen in other country debt or corporate debt. So you have the second one is liquidity risk. Then the third one, and this is where I spent my entire career, is credit risk. And a lot of people out there will say, the US Treasury has zero credit risk. Well, that's bullshit. Because if it had zero credit risk, there would not be a credit default swap market for the US Treasury note. 5-year US Treasury notes have a 20 basis point cost of insurance, which means of the 4%, at least 20 basis points is credit risk. And probably on a 10-year bond, since the 5-year bond is 20 basis points, let's just say the 10-year bond is 40 basis points, everything else being equal. So those three components are what prices sovereign debt for the US Treasury. Would be the same thing excuse me, with other sovereign nations where their credit risk is higher, their inflation is different, but it always is a price. The US Treasury will always have a bid, okay? That I am certain. Excuse me, but that bid, you may not like it. Meaning if you bought something at 4% and now they're trading at 6% because of all the different factors that go in, you've just lost $16 on your bond investment, because that's how the price works. And what if it trades at 8%? Well, this is what happened in the UK gilt market. So all of this being said, other sovereign debt markets are way worse than the US Treasury. Okay, let's get that straight. US Treasury will be the last borrower in the universe to default. Could happen. But if it does, Canada is so far gone, it's not funny. Every other country in the world is baked. Every single corporate bond, mortgage bond, bank bond, everything is done. So let's not overthink what the US Treasury is versus all the peripheral markets that are going to fail before the US Treasury. So yes, there's a price. I would buy US Treasury debt. I've done it my whole life. Substitute in credit ABC for US Treasury, figure out what the risks are, buy it at the price that you get rewarded for the risks. I'm not the only guy that does this, okay? Lots of very good risk managers are trying to calculate that specific calculation on a daily basis. They just screwed the pooch a couple of years ago because they were pricing it without considering the potential inflationary impact. They got lulled to sleep. And all of a sudden, as Lagarde said, Lizard Lady said, oh, inflation came out of nowhere. Come on, you criminal. Inflation came out because you guys were pricing debt with negative yields. You stupid old fool. Okay? Now you got to call her out. At the end of the day, there will be a bid for US Treasuries, but there may not be a bid for US high yield bonds. There may not be a bid for JP Morgan debt. There certainly won't be a bid for Deutsche Bank debt. Credit Suisse will be so far fucking gone, it's not funny. And all of this contagion will trickle down. So let's go and make sure that if you're ever going to buy a bond, the most important bond that you need to learn how to price is the US Treasury bond, because that bond will impact the prices of all other bonds in the world. If you can't figure out how to price the US Treasury bond, don't even try to price any of the bonds that trade on top of that, meaning in a higher yield because they're more risk. Does that make any sense?
Pure signal. Guys, you're listening to the Pacific Bitcoin Last Call special with the one, the only, the macro legend, Greg Foss. You have your chance to meet this man in the flesh at Pacific Bitcoin. Take advantage of the promo code right now, Last Call. We have 8 minutes left, and that means that I also have, look, I've gotten 2 Federal Reserve chairmen to come on the show, but this one, it's the one, the only. Mr. Powell had a chance to make it, and he gave us 60 seconds for Greg Foss to speak his mind.
Oh man, Jerome, please go back to law. Maybe learn grade 11 mathematics. You're the world's worst poker player. I would love to play poker against you. I mean, you can't bluff your way out of a royal flush. Okay. I mean, you would successfully fuck up holding, a royal flush. This is the problem when you put a lawyer in a risk chair. Lawyers are traditionally parasites. You are a parasite of epic proportions. Problem is that you are costing the future of our children. No idea why you accepted your second term. Anyone who had half a brain would have left into the sunset and tried to garner that Nobel Prize in the future, but you were too dumb. You tried to come in, you tried to do a Volcker moment. Guess what? You can't. The math won't let you do a Volcker moment. If you try, you're going to blow up the world. So try holding those pocket aces, bluff your way out. You're going to fail. Thank you.
Oof. All right. I want to thank Jerome Powell for being able to make it and speak to Greg. Guys, this is the Pacific Bitcoin Last Call special with Greg Foss. Is an interactive show. Drop your questions in the live chat for a chance to ask Greg, and you can take advantage of the promo code all caps Last Call to get a discount to Pacific Bitcoin. Next question we got from Michael Lenardi. He says, what is the latest data from the credit default swap markets telling us about Bitcoin, about the economy in general, and what are you watching closely?
What a great question. Yeah. Okay. So I like to summarize it like this. Bitcoin is credit, in my opinion, Bitcoin is credit insurance on a basket of fiats. And without confusing the math too much, because it could be hard to examine every individual fiat in the basket, I flip it on its ear and I only examine the US Treasury component and that part of the fiat is the largest borrower in the world and it's our economy. So to make the math simple, 5-year credit default swap insurance Treasury is for the US Treasury is 31 trillion funded debt plus another 170 trillion of unfunded liabilities. So that's a total of 200 trillion of US Treasury liabilities going forward. Now I say, okay, we're trying to hedge that. What 20-year CDS cost? And you just do a linear calculation. You say, if it's 4 basis points a year, because 5 years cost 20 basis points, then 20-year CDS on a linear will cost you 80, and you get an answer of 1.6 is what it would cost to the U.S. a default on ending obligations. I think that's pretty easy mathematics. And the funny thing is, Bitcoin is trading for 400 billion. It's trading for 1/4 of the amount it would cost to insure the entire USA. So here's the cool thing. Someone can't make out what I'm saying. Again, I'm sorry about this real stream. It's always been a problem.
You're back. You're back.
Well,
Greg.
okay, here's what I would say. Okay. You got 1.6 trillion. It's trading for 400 billion. It's trading for 25% of its value of default insurance on the USA alone, which means you're getting cheap default insurance on the USA and you're getting every other country for free. Holy effing crap. Okay? This is the cheapest, most beautiful insurance contract I've ever seen. And it's got no counterparty risk. And it's got no time of expiry. Are you people really that silly that you can't see how valuable Bitcoin is compared to the global debt and fiat Ponzi? Not sure how else I can explain it to you people. That's grade 11 math. Doing my best. I guess all I would say is I'll just continue to repeat it, and you can check your bingo card. Bingo, bingo, bingo. Fucking bingo is right because the world still hasn't got it. Okay.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm really enjoying this, guys. We are running out of time. If you want to hear more about Greg and potentially meet him in person, you have to go to the Pacific Bitcoin Conference. It is coming up. Greg's going to be on 2 amazing panels. He's also going to be at the Swando. You guys have 8 days and 18 hours to buy your tickets. Use the promo code all caps last call and meet us here tomorrow for another special with Jeff Booth and Lynn Alden. You guys are also going to have the opportunity to ask them directly, and they're also going to speak to other legacy media people. Greg, who do you think they should speak to tomorrow? If Jeff Booth had
Jeff and Lynn?
Yeah, so I got Bernanke. I got Bernanke and Powell for you.
No, just let them speak to each other. Those 2 people are such high signal. They just let them speak to each other. I spent 3 weeks on the road with Jeff Booth. My brain is still recovering from the download of data that I got from Jeff. Okay. Like it's that simple. Sometimes you just don't say anything. You just shut the heck up and you listen and you absorb. And then you try and understand what they say. And if it did come in clearly, you listen to it again. It's taken me a couple of years to figure out exactly what Jeff Booth is saying some of the time. I took 14 pages of notes when I read his book. 14. I could show you them. It's not important. I refer to that on a monthly basis. Why? Because there's just so much in there that, I'm not the world's smartest person. If I'm the smartest person in the room, we're in big trouble. Okay. But all I do know is I try to learn from smart people like Jeff. So, you know what? They don't have to tell anybody anything. They can just talk to themselves and explain concepts between each of them. And we're here to learn. Jeff is a marvelous individual. Lynn is an outstanding analyst, such a solid person too. This is why we're going to win. We have brain power that is so far in excess of what the TradFi people, some of those TradFi people know what's going on. And they're just so conflicted. They sit under their desk and they're like, oh God, I hope it doesn't collapse tomorrow because I got to get my Christmas bonus, because I got to go out, talk to the boys at the country club and tell them, yeah, you know what? I got my bonus this year and I fucked the fiat system so good that I'm going to get a bigger bonus than I did last year. That's the problem with Jamie Dimon, okay? He is screwing you and grin fucking you at the same time. Okay. He's looking you right in the eyes and he's smiling and he's grin fucking you like the fiat fucking thief he is. Sorry. I got to tell the truth. I swear because I care. It is enough of these, conflicted fools. Over and out.
Amen to that. I'm going to take your advice on it. Guys, tune in tomorrow, 3 p.m. We have Jeff Booth. Your chance to ask him directly your questions. This is an interactive show. And we have Lynn Alden coming in at 4 p.m. and also your opportunity to ask them. The reason I wanted to do this is because it represents what Pacific Bitcoin is going to be. It's not big enough where you get lost in the sauce. It's just the right size where you have the opportunity to potentially meet these legends and ask them questions. You could use the promo code all caps last call to get a discount on your Pacific Bitcoin tickets. Greg, thank you so much for joining us today, and I will see you in California.
Looking forward to it, brother. Thanks so much, everybody. Hug your kids. Talk to you soon. See you in Pacific Bitcoin.
Thanks, Greg. All right, guys, let's check out the Swan mobile app. Jacob, roll it out.